Subscribe now and for stories about love stolen, truth buried, and the children brave enough to dig it back up. I have spent 9 years telling my daughter that her father was a brave man who died before she was born. I told her this so she would carry pride instead of a wound. I told her this so she could sleep. I never told her his name. My name is Florence, and I am a Nigerian nurse living in the part of Seoul that tourists never photograph. Small apartments stacked like matchboxes, laundry lines strung between windows, the smell of someone else's dinner always drifting under the door. I have built a careful, quiet life here, the kind of life you build when you are a foreign woman, raising a child alone in a country that never fully opens its doors. Yara is 9 years old and she has never once been quiet. No, she was reading medical textbooks by 5. She corrected her teacher's equations at 6 and was politely asked not to do it again. By 7, she had taught herself 3 coding languages from YouTube videos played on our secondhand laptop at 2 in the morning when she couldn't sleep. She has my nose, my stubborn jaw, my refusal to accept that something is impossible just because no one has done it yet. And she has his eyes, not the color. That deep, warm brown belongs to both of us. But the ring, a thin band of amber around the pupil of her left eye, vivid and unmistakable like a tiny sun trapped inside the iris. Doctors called it a benign anomaly. I called it the one part of her I could never explain away. I should have known it would find us eventually. The Seoul National Science Exhibition was supposed to be a simple afternoon. Nothing about Yara has ever been simple. The professor was from Yonsei University, gray-haired, decorated, the kind of man whose credentials were printed on the exhibition banner, in font large enough to read from across the hall. He was explaining quantum error correction to a crowd of parents and children who were nodding with the polite incomprehension of people at an art gallery. Yara raised her hand. I saw it happen from 20 feet away, and I already knew. I knew from the angle of her chin, lifted, certain, and the way she pushed her glasses up before she spoke, which she only ever did when she was about to change the temperature of a room. Your second assumption is wrong, she said. The professor smiled the way adults smile at children who say adorable things. Oh, and why is that? You're treating decoherence as linear. It isn't. Apply the Lindblad master equation correctly and your error rate triples under these conditions. She paused. I can show you. He let her. I think he expected to correct her gently within 30 seconds. 7 minutes later, he stepped back from the whiteboard. The room went completely silent. Yara turned to face the audience, chalk still in her hand, completely unbothered. And the man filming from the third row zoomed in on her face. That footage would have 4 million views by midnight. But I wasn't watching the crowd erupt. I was watching the far edge of the room, where a tall man in a black tailored suit stood absolutely still. Not clapping, not moving. His neck covered in dark, elaborate tattoos above his collar, his jaw set like carved stone. He was staring at my daughter's left eye, with an expression I had seen only once before on a dead man's face. If you feel what Florence is feeling right now, comment Yara below. Stay with me. The truth is about to crack everything open. The video was everywhere by the time we got home. Yara fell asleep almost immediately. She always crashed hard after being witnessed, the performance of it exhausting her in ways equations never did. I covered her, checked the door locks twice, and sat down with my phone. I told myself I was reading the comments, but I kept returning to the video itself, playing it, pausing it, scrubbing back to the same 3 seconds of blurred background footage. The man at the far edge of the room. I knew the line of that jaw, the way he held his shoulders, not tense, never tense, but loaded, contained. Like a sentence stopped just before the word that would have changed everything. Kwon Ju-woo. Ju-woo had been dead for 9 years. I had been told this by a man in a dark suit standing in a hospital corridor while I was still in recovery from labor. He didn't make it, the man had said. There was nothing to be done. He would have wanted you to go home. I had believed him. I had built my entire life on that belief. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. I didn't sleep. By 4 in the morning, I had found 12 more angles of the exhibition footage. In one clip, a woman accidentally panning while finding her seat. 3 seconds, shaky but clear enough. It was him. Older. The softness replaced by something harder and more deliberate. But the same. The way a scar resembles the wound that made it. He was alive. Yeah, and he had been watching my daughter. I was still sitting in the dark when a knock came at 6:15. I opened the door with the chain still on. The man outside was in his 60s, patient-faced, unhurried. He bowed slightly. "Miss Florence, my name is Tai Shik. I drive for Kwon Ju-woo." He paused. "He would like to speak with you. He says to tell you—" He checked a folded note. "He says he knows this is impossible, and he is asking anyway." 9 years of grief rearranged itself inside my chest into something that had no name yet. "Where?" I said. He gave me an address. I called my neighbor to sit with Yara. I changed my clothes 3 times. I walked into the cold and got into a black car that smelled like cedar. And I went to meet the dead man. Comment justice if his mother deserves to be exposed. I keep watching. Yara already knows more than anyone realizes. He was standing when I walked in. Not seated, not positioned to dominate. Standing in the center of an empty restaurant looking like a man who had not slept either. His left eye carried the amber ring, the one Yara had inherited. Neither of us spoke for a long moment. "You were dead," I finally said. "I was told you left." His voice was lower now, heavier. "That you took money my mother offered and went home to Nigeria." "I never took any money." "I know that now." Something cold moved through me. "What exactly were you told about the pregnancy?" "That there was no child." He stopped. "That the matter had been resolved." I thought about that hospital corridor, the man in the suit. He didn't make it. They had lied to both of us. "She told me you were dead," I said. A man came to the hospital while I was still in recovery. Said you were killed." My voice cracked. "I mourned you, Ju-woo. I actually mourned you. I named our daughter after the word for river in my grandmother's language because rivers keep moving even when they lose something." He sat down, like his legs had decided for him. "She looks like you," he said quietly. "The set of her jaw, the way she stood at that whiteboard." "She has your eyes," I said. The drive home felt different. I walked through my apartment door carrying something rawer than grief, something with no scar tissue over it, and found Yara awake. She was sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by printed documents, bank records, scanned hospital files, communications, all arranged in chronological order. She looked up at me with those amber-ringed eyes and said, without preamble, "His name is Kwon Ju-woo. He runs the Kwon organization. He's my father." My mouth opened, closed. "I started after I saw him in the video," she continued. "I accessed the exhibition's security archive first. Better angle. Then his corporate records. Then some communications that weren't public." A small pause. "I'm sorry, I needed to know." She slid the papers to me. The first document? A wire transfer made 9 years ago. The note field read, "Maternity settlement, consent to departure." The account did not belong to me. Beneath it, a memo dated 3 days after Yara's birth. Yara had translated it in red pen at the bottom. "Confirmed disposal of matter. Subject believes loss. Proceed." I sat down beside my 9-year-old daughter and put my hands flat on the table to stop them from shaking. She reached over and placed her small hand on top of mine. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I sent the documents to Ju-woo that evening. Every page photographed and forwarded. His response came at 2 in the morning. 3 words, "I'm handling it." What that meant, Tae-shik told me later in pieces. Ju-woo had gone to his mother's compound in Seongbuk-dong. Traditional house, ancestral furniture, the accumulated weight of 3 generations. He had placed Yara's photograph on the table, the memo beside it. His mother looked at both for a long time. "I protected this family," she said. "From a child," Ju-woo said. "From complication. From a foreign woman who would have consumed everything you were building. She was carrying my daughter. She was carrying a problem." He did not raise his voice. Why, he was quiet in the way I remembered even from 9 years ago. The quiet that meant something final was being decided. He removed his mother from every position she held that night. Every account. Every representative. Every mechanism of power she had accumulated over 30 years. Stripped quietly. Completely. Then he called me. "It's done," he said. "She's your mother," I said. She took 9 years from my daughter. His voice did not waver. Some things cannot be balanced. 3 days later, a letter arrived from Seoul Immigration Services. Flagged review. Mandatory appearance within 7 days. I stared at it and laughed. Hollow, humorless. Even stripped of power, his mother had one card left. Filed before he removed her access. Timed perfectly. I called Ju-woo. He answered before the second ring. I know. Ha! Lawyers are already filing. If they deport me? Florence. His voice dropped. I spent 9 years not knowing Yara existed. I am not standing in Seoul while someone deports my daughter's mother. I promise you, this is the one thing I will not allow. I believed him. But Yara had already read the letter over my shoulder, and now she was sitting on the kitchen floor. Back against the cabinet, Professor Coco pressed to her chest, legs pulled up. Are we going to leave? She asked. No, I said immediately. You don't know that yet, she said quietly. She never pretended not to understand things. I sat down on the floor beside her. You're right, I said. But someone is fighting for us. She was quiet for a moment. Is it him? She asked. My father? Yes. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Just that. Okay. Comment home if this story found you at the right moment. Subscribe and share it with someone who needs to know. What was stolen from you can still come back. See you in the next story. The immigration matter resolved in 4 days. On the 5th morning, a new letter confirmed my continued residency in Seoul. Yara placed it carefully into a folder she had labeled, in her precise handwriting, evidence that things work out. I didn't know she kept a folder like that. It made me cry quietly at the kitchen counter while she pretended not to notice. Ju-woo came that Saturday, the first time he had been to our apartment. Small, cluttered with Yara's papers and equations pinned to every surface, smelling of the agushi I had made the night before. He stood in the doorway like a man who understood he was entering something fragile and intended to be careful with it. Yara studied him for a full 30 seconds. Your amber ring. The diameter is 2.3 millimeters. Mine is 2.1. Probably maternal influence narrowing the expression. She paused. You can stay for lunch. Florence makes agushi. It's statistically the best thing in this apartment. He stayed. After lunch, while Yara was walking him through every document she had organized, all of it, every page of the investigation she had conducted alone at 2 in the morning, she paused, set down the papers, and said without looking up, in the same quiet tone she used for mathematical facts she had already accepted as true. Appa? One word. Soft. Deliberate. Ju-woo went completely still. I watched him press one hand briefly over his mouth, the way people do when they are holding something too large to let out in a room. Yara picked the papers back up and kept talking, equations, timelines, data, as if she had not just handed a man back 9 years of his life in a single syllable. I reached across the table and found Ju-woo's other hand. He held on. She called him Appa. And I understood finally that the river had not lost anything. It had only been finding its way home.